Hello and welcome. An act of terrorism will be considered an act of war. With these historically hard-hitting words, India redefined the red line with Pakistan this time. Operation Sindoor was New Delhi's retaliation against the cowardly massacre of 26 Hindu tourists in Kashmir. But this was not just revenge, it was a strong messaging for the world and especially for Pakistan. Yet, the big question remains, can you deter a nation that thrives on self-deception of being in constant conflict with India? Let's dive into the ideology, identity crisis, and military delusion that define Pakistan today. Before getting started, let me request, if you like our work, do consider subscribing to the channel because that really helps us in doing a better work. Thank you very much. Now let's get started. After the horrific Pahalgam massacre on April 22nd, 2025, decisive Modi government launched a strategic military operation on May 7th named it Operation Sindoor, vermilion, which Hindu married women wear as mark of their marital status. Hence, the name of the operation was given to honor the martyrdom of those Hindu men by their wives. What came out of this operation? Well, 24 precision airstrikes, more than 100 terrorists killed, no civilian casualties. Target zones included the terrorist infrastructures in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and deep inside Punjab like Bahawalpur and Murid K, hubs of Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and other ISI-sponsored jihadist camps. As General Atta Hasnain said on NDTV, Sindoor was not symbolic, it was a clinical removal of assets with clear deterrence intent. But deterrence only works on rational actors. What if your enemy is committed to an endless suicidal game of perpetual conflict with you? So that brings us to discuss Pakistan's identity crisis, which is born to be against India. Here is the crux, folks. Pakistan is not a country in search of identity. It is a country built on denying someone else's identity. Pakistan's very foundation, the infamous two-nation theory, is based on the claim that Hindus and Muslims cannot coexist. The theory was busted when East Pakistan was freed from the sinister clutches of the Pakistani army and became an independent country called Bangladesh in 1971. A far bigger jolt to their two-nation theory is the very fact that 200 million Muslims continue to thrive in secular India, and their vote, their rise to power, they become a role model for society in their respective fields. And in Pakistan, minorities are vanishing from over 22% at partition. Hindus, Sikhs, and Christians now form less than 3% of the population. Forget about non-Muslim minorities. Even the Muslim migrants who migrated from India during the 1947 partition, they are called muhajirs. And these 16 million muhajirs are treated as second-grade citizens. The list doesn't end here. Ahmadiyas, a group within Islam, have been declared non-Muslim by the Pakistan government and are often referred by a derogatory term, Qadianis. So why so much of injustice and divisions within its own territory for its own people? Of course, Pakistan's identity depends on exclusion, not creation, but contradiction. And this crisis is not abstract. It is admitted by their own leaders. Listen to what former Pakistan diplomat Hussain Haqqani recalls from his time in power. One of our senior generals once told me bluntly, we can never become a secular democracy like India. We didn't separate from them to become them. we would rather collapse than become a second-grade India. So this is not a fringe view. This is policy articulated at the highest levels of the Pakistani military. Now, let's see Pakistan's military doctrine, a culture of conflict, to understand whether this operation will have long-term consequences. We need to comprehend the DNA of Pakistan's military. When Pakistan was created in 1947, the British ensured it was disproportionately militarized, not due to equality, but due to geopolitics. Over 60% of British India army recruits hailed from what became Pakistan. Why? Because of Britain's Cold War anxieties with the USSR. General Douglas Gracie, a British officer, even led the Pakistan army post-partition. So the seeds of external manipulation were sown pretty early. Since 1958, the Pakistani military has never truly left power. Either they govern directly like Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, Ziaul Haq or Pervez Musharraf, or they rule from behind, using civilians as puppets. As analyst Christine Fair argues in her book, Fighting to the End, Pakistan's military doesn't seek victory over India, it seeks perpetual conflict to justify its political and economic dominance at home. Since 1947, Pakistan has lost every war it fought against India, and yet its military budget grows, its grip over power tightens, because the war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be prolonged. That is why, even when civilian governments like Benazir Bhutto or Nawaz Sharif seek peace, the army undercuts them. The army's empire, its land, its factories, its industries of making salt to building business empires or even building housing societies to its foreign fundings depends on keeping India as its eternal enemy. Since they know they cannot defeat India in a conventional war, they invented a new method of cross-border terrorism. Since they had their first-hand experience of training, funding jihadists with their Western masters in Afghanistan against Russian invasion. So their exposure of terrorism took a strategic shift in the late 1990s. That brings us to see the nuclear shield terror without consequence. Since 1998, Pakistan's nuclear weapons have not been used for deterrence. In fact, they've been used as a shield to enable terrorism. Let's be blunt, folks. Pakistan's strategy is to sponsor terrorism under the umbrella of nuclear blackmail. In 2001, Parliament attack. In 2008, Mumbai carnage. In 2016, Uri. In 2019, Pulwama. And now 2025, Pahalgam. Each time India wants to retaliate, Western powers scream nuclear flashpoint, and Pakistan, it denies, deflects, and prepares the next attack. As Brahmachalani puts it brilliantly, Pakistan has weaponized both terror and nuclear diplomacy. One strikes and the other silences the world. Hence, the Operation Sindoor was an attempt to break the pattern, but the pattern is embedded in Pakistan's survival model. So, what should we do in this regard? What is the strategic road ahead? Well, in my view, the first point can be global narrative war. India must invest in strategic communication. In that regard, as part of its counter-narrative diplomacy, India has already launched all-party delegation bipartisan missions consisted of veterans like Shashi Tharoor and Owaisi to brief foreign governments, media houses about India's truth on Kashmir, terrorism, and Pakistan's duplicity. Secondly, we can quote Empower Balochistan. This mineral-rich province has been oppressed for decades. A rise in insurgency that is Pakistan's worst nightmare. Supporting Baloch voices politically, not militarily at the moment, could unnerve Rawalpindi's iron grip. Thirdly, denuclearization push. As Christine Fair argued, the world must confront the elephant in the room, a bankrupt, unstable, nuclear-armed Pakistan. Without a serious international framework, the risk of losing nukes or nuclear blackmail only grows. Fourthly, strategic domestic counter-terror operations. No external deterrence works without internal vigilance. India must boost human intel and cyber surveillance, particularly in vulnerable zones. Fifth one can be end this water treaty, squeeze them through the water diplomacy. India must now review the IWT not out of vengeance but logic. Under Article 12, the treaty can be modified or terminated by mutual consent. If not, India can still maximize its legal rights under the treaty, build reservoirs, alter flow timings, and increase control without violations. This is not weaponizing water, this is withdrawing generosity. In fact, as former Foreign Secretary Kawal Sibal noted, treaties are not suicidal pacts. If one party constantly bleeds the other, morality has its limitations too. So, in conclusion, let me say this, that Operation Sindoor was surgical, it was just, it was necessary, but it won't end the terrorism, because you cannot bomb an ideology, cannot airstrike an identity crisis. To win, India must fight, and not just across borders, but across narratives, institutions, and global perception. Because Pakistan will not change until the world stops enabling its delusions. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of a long-ending process. Until then, stay informed, stay unafraid. Thanks for watching. Take care.